of Admiral Husband E. Kimmel. This graduate of the United States Naval Academy comes from a family of distinguished scholars and government servants dedicated to protecting America. He served on 3 warships during the Vietnam War, attended John Marshall Law School prior to joining the FBI in 1973, where he continued to serve his country as an agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation for more than 25 years. He's investigated organized crime, served on the House Appropriations Committee investigative staff, headed the Labor Racketeering Unit at the FBI headquarters, served on the President's Council on Integrity and Efficiency, and many other FBI endeavors. Upon retiring from the FBI, he served as a consultant to the Bureau addressing major spy scandals in the FBI and the CIA. A more complete bio is located in your program. Ladies and gentlemen, our featured speaker, Thomas Kincaid Kimmel, Jr.
Thomas Kimmel. Thomas K.
First of all, thank you, Henderson Choir. That was lovely. I'm very thankful that Eternal Father follows my speech and does not precede it. I'll have trouble with that. Jim Smith, Ken Christopher, Mr. Mayor, honored guest, Henderson, thank you for your loyalty to my grandfather, Admiral Husband Kimmel, and to our family whose hometown this was. On the morning of December 7th, 1941, at Pearl Harbor, the Admiral watched from his headquarters as the Japanese planes roared in, bombing and strafing. He rapped out what commands could be of use, informed Washington what was happening, and as per his standing orders, saw that his ship's anti-aircraft batteries were ready and rapidly responding with anti-aircraft fire. All around him, his men were dying. More than 2,000 of them, dozens drowning in the filthy oil slick of the harbor, much of it on fire. When he himself was hit a glancing blow by a spent bullet crashing through the window, he was heard to murmur, "Would that it had killed me." In the days that followed, when all around was human suffering, the Admiral was to be seen virtually visiting every ship's crew in the harbor. His first concern at all times, before and after the disaster, was for the men under his command. Years later, when he wrote his memoir, he dedicated his book to the officers and men who fought and died at Pearl Harbor. My grandfather was the most senior officer in the seagoing Navy. President Roosevelt himself had noted his splendid record over a lifetime of faithful service to our country. Yet, in the wake of the attack, the Admiral and the head of the Army Hawaiian Command, Lieutenant General Short, were relieved of command, manipulated into retirement, and accused of dereliction of duty. They were publicly vilified. 3 years later, though, the Naval Court of Inquiry cleared my grandfather of the charge, as did a later congressional investigation. The stain of disgrace remained, however. Kimmel and Short were the only two World War II senior officers not retired at their highest held rank. Of course, rank restoration has long been the only measure that could restore the Admiral's honor. More than 25 years ago, the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association passed a resolution to that effect. 3 weeks later, a dozen admirals petitioned the president to that effect. 16 years ago, Congress formally recommended to that effect. Nothing has been done. The Survivors Association asked my father and my uncle to assist them in the effort to have the commander's rank posthumously restored. They did, and we, in our generation, continue to do so, as evidenced by this letter. This letter that Manning Kimmel, another grandson, and I sent to President Obama about 2 weeks ago. The letter, in part: Dear Mr. President, we, the undersigned grandsons of Rear Admiral Husband Kimmel, respectfully urge you to nominate to the United States Senate Rear Admiral Kimmel and Major General Short for posthumous promotion as requested by Congress. As a U.S. Senator, now Vice President, Joe Biden sponsored the resolution to restore Kimmel and Short to their 1941 ranks, backers of which included the now Secretary of State John Kerry, the late Senator Edward Kennedy, and the late Senator Strom Thurmond. There can be no statute of limitations, Biden had said in a Senate speech, for restoring honor and dignity to men who spent their lives devoted to America's service and yet were unfairly treated. When it comes to serving justice, the time must always be now. We make this letter of ours public for the first time today. Also today, on the occasion of the dedication of the statue to our distinguished forebear, we make public a press statement on behalf of our extended family. Copies are available for the media and those who want to read them for themselves. Now, in the context of the overall tragedy, I strongly suspect Admiral Kimmel himself wouldn't give a hoot about the rank restoration issue. Indeed, he would probably think it but a vain, glorious exercise. He would, though, encourage to the skies our effort to get the full Pearl Harbor story to the public. Ladies and gentlemen, the reality is that Admiral Kimmel and the men under his command were grossly let down by military men and political officials in Washington, D.C., on whom they had to rely.
Yeah. Amen.
Near the end of his memoir, Admiral Kimmel wrote of these failures, "I cannot excuse those in authority in Washington And I do not believe that thousands of mothers and fathers on that 7th day of December 1941 will excuse them. We are still pursuing the truth he sought. My grandfather's own grievances aside, he remained always preoccupied with the loss of his men. A loss that perhaps could have been avoided. In a note to himself after Pearl Harbor, he wrote, "The officers and men stationed in Hawaii in 1941 were fine, upstanding young Americans, whom the American people should ever remember with gratitude and honor. In the Japanese attack, they showed themselves fearless, resourceful, and self-sacrificing. I shall be proud always of having commanded such men." Thank you again, Henderson, for the opportunity to speak on this solemn 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, and for the honor you have done my grandfather. Our family is deeply grateful.